we got to move past a very, very tough loss, and a big game this week. So the rivalry games on the horizon, one that we all take extremely serious around here, and one that we cherish to be part of. I know I'm speaking on behalf of our players and coaches. It's a sign of a team that can move past a very difficult Saturday and move forward. So. Just had a team meeting, and as you can imagine, not everyone's stomach was there, and it'd be really disappointing if it wasn't there. Today, you'd like to see most of the guys, a lot of the guys already, the real guys that play a lot, and then they're moving on, and it's always good. How do you deal with disappointment? We were created, and I don't want to go over really dramatic here, but get around family and people you care about. And that's sleepless night on Saturday night, and you start to feel better when you see your guys show up again. So that's what, just personally speaking, and the guys I've spoken to. So move forward. I know I'm going to get a bunch of questions about Zeke. Zeke has always been an extremely loyal person, a great competitor. He had an infection in his leg early in the week, and just a very emotional week. Obviously, his last time, he's a very well thought of junior. And he gets a microphone stuck in his face, and obviously we do not condone that and encourage it. Our rules always talk about your teammates and move on. And he came to see me. We had a very long discussion. He's great, and he apologized, and he said, they didn't have the whole interview in there, and regardless, I'm not going to listen to the whole interview, and that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It does mean a lot that it's causing attention. So we squashed it as a team. We squashed it. Zeke, but I want to make clear, Zeke's been a good student, very loyal, incredible football player, most selfless player, one of the most selfless players I've ever coached, and been around. So I imagine we'll get with that a little bit. So we've got to move forward and get better and get ready for a very good team.
Opening up with Rob, front row.
Yeah, Urban, to pick up on that, how concerned were you that came out? I think you kind of just answered it, but how do you gauge the culture of trust? Because usually those things don't happen in a vacuum. Maybe this was an isolated incident, I don't know, but.
Very isolated incident. We have a 3-year bank on Zeke, and plus Zeke is a very honest guy. Frustration, anger, all that probably mounted up a lot. Like I couldn't disagree with him, his comments, that he should have got the ball a little bit more. But that's not the place to do it. He knows that. But I've seen it, I don't know, unless this is your first rodeo, have you ever seen an emotional athlete ever go, or coach? I mean, that's, for those of you who've ever played or coached, that happens. That's why I always like to decompress for at least a few minutes, because I've seen some things that I'm not very proud of. And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying that's not the forum to have those conversations. And Zeke's got, like I said, a 3-year bank, so I know I'm probably going to get another 64 questions on it, but it's done. We've got a really good team coming out that we're playing, and we're going to move forward.
Does it force you to look at the culture, whether it's a trust culture or whatever that's going on, or is that, how do you gauge the room?
We're going to try to go do the best. You guys had a lot of, I don't want to, once again, undervalue a loss. It's been okay. We got to find a way to get another win now. When you start talking about culture, it kind of stung a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm always called gauging the culture. And I gauge it on how they practice, how they show up, that they play hard in the game. Is there good chemistry in the units, and those type of things. So I'm always gauging that.
That's good.
Front row, Bill.
When you look at the tape, I'm sure it was pretty painful to do that. But you said on Saturday that you were not content with play calling. When you watched the play calling again and you analyzed how you guys called the game, what did you think?
Well, not very good. Have to do better.
And at some point, I mean, obviously you're the head coach, and you could have said, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Do you regret not having done that?
Yes.
Expound on that at all?
Front row, Dave.
Coach, you mentioned that you don't disagree with Ezekiel's post-game comments about the 12 carries, only 12 carries. The low amount of carries, was it because of the infection that he had in his leg, missing practice time?
No, it was the carries he did have, if you notice the defense, and we were, it seemed like the whole freaking game had the wind in our face too. I mean, it was, when the ball was given to him, there was a lot of people right there. And that was all I kept thinking about. And it was rather obvious, and you're hoping to get the wind at your back and be able to get out of your, we were backed up and wind at your back, and they were keying on the best player in the field, Ezekiel Elliott. And that's, but hindsight, beat him. And he has a way of making yards.
And you're involved in play calling, as we all know, as you said after the game. Will you be even more involved in play calling going forward this season? Can you expound on that? Just
Not really, I'm still going through it.
Back row left, Jared.
Urban, just a thought on Michigan. As you've watched them throughout the year, maybe on cross tape or just in your study yesterday, are you surprised, or just what is your reaction to the way that they've grown throughout the season in the first year of being coach?
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. I think they have excellent players. They're well coached. I've always, checked their recruiting. I remember hearing, they just don't have the personnel. Thinking, wait a minute, they have great personnel. They always have great personnel. Whether they're always playing great or whatever, that's a different answer. And obviously, they're playing very well right now.
Front row, Tim.
Yeah, Urban, as you look at it, was Saturday a sort of a microcosm of you guys trying to figure out what you wanted to do this year offensively? With all these weapons available to you, trying to spread the ball, get guys involved. Did it kind of catch up with you guys, you think, Saturday?
A
From the
little
standpoint
bit.
of the
I
options,
think the elements were also, we wanted to throw the ball in that game. We wanted to. We had success against Michigan State last year throwing the ball for 300 yards. That was kind of going into it. That was there's a very good defensive front, very good. And there's how do you get them off you? And you come out there in pregame warm up and you're like, oh no. And it just kind of, we did, we tried to, just we're not hitting them, dropping them. And
Yeah.
it was a tough situation, so you kind of have to take that part out of it until a point, because you still have to be able to function in the elements a little bit. And so yes and no. Yes, that to answer your question is yes, but that wasn't the only thing.
Yeah. And the other thing, Joey obviously had those moments where he jumped and they jumped. Just defensively, you were sitting here a week ago very high on your defense and stuff. What did you see? It looked like they hammered away in the middle and finally got some things done. And what did you see? What's the challenge for your defense this week?
Well, yeah, they, their quarterback was out. They put a runner in there, and that hurt us. Quarterback on game. I felt like the fatigue set in the fourth quarter a little bit. A lot of it was because of lack of offensive production, and the possession time was so high. And we could have done better, but overall, our defense, I think, we had a bad punt where we blew the ball right as he was getting ready to hit the punt, and they stopped him. So there's been some very. I'm pleased with our defense, and I hope they play as well as we continue the season.
Front row right, Austin.
Urban, I know a big part of your program and culture is honesty. You wrote about that. How does that work with a player? Let's say he wasn't in a press conference. Is that something that Zeke could have come said to the team?
Sure.
Is that okay there?
Team? No, me.
Just to you?
Yeah. It's I've been in situations where you're hearing a lot of that. So if I'm a wide receiver right now, but there's a lot of trust built up over years, and absolutely. And when you say honesty, it's just the forum. It's not. And our guys have been pretty good. I'm trying to think over the last few years. Our guys have been, and there could have been situations every game. You find it, you want to find it, you can find a disgruntled or someone. Disgruntled is probably not the appropriate word, but just someone that has emotional, especially guys that earn their keep around here. Absolutely, there's conversation.
One other
It's
thing,
called very respectful conversation.
One other thing that came out of it was the first time we heard him say that he wouldn't be returning next year. Last week, Joey kind of hinted that was the way he was leaning. Cardale, has posted some things saying the same thing. It seems like these guys have that on their mind, and it might be impossible for that to not be a consideration. How are you managing it with them? It's starting to get to the end of the year, and now 3 of them are already kind of tipping their hand with it.
Oh, well, one way is just, don't let them meet, take their phones away, and they're off limits. That's one way. I've thought about that. That's probably not fair. I trust those guys. Zeke, once again, the people you're having talk about, very emotional, very guys that are, and one thing, loss is a loss. It happens, I guess, is, the emotions seep out sometimes. So I'm not, I want to play really hard Saturday, get ready to get this team ready to go. The names you just mentioned are wonderful, loyal kids to this program. I've done probably about, there's some great historians in this program that could tell you more, but I can't imagine those names you just mentioned have done much more. One won a national championship as a quarterback, 11-0 as a starter, and the other are two of the best players ever to wear Scarlet and Gray. And they're good students and good guys. So I think, I got to make sure we're doing this how we get the laser lights. It's on preparation.
And make it clear, I mean, Zeke faces no jeopardy with you going into the game from a standpoint of not starting or something like that.
No.
I mean,
Not at all.
Second row right, Dave.
Urban, a little off topic. I know you only spent a couple months there, but being born obviously in Toledo, on the front lines of this rivalry, your first house address was actually less than a mile from the Michigan border. You grew up in Ashtabula, but how do you identify with Toledo? Obviously, it's always your birthplace.
Yeah, that was a drive-by though, I guess. I don't. I asked that question too, and I got this. We weren't there very long. You got my address, huh?
I was on the birth certificate.
What's your social security?
No other.
I'd love to. I spent time at Bowling Green. That's probably the closest I ever got to Toledo and understanding Northwest Ohio. And I do understand the value of the players, the prospects, the Heisman Trophy winners that have come out of that area, great players. Toledo, Sandusky, and that whole area. So I'm not sure the question.
No, I didn't know if your parents ever took you to the old house or told you anything about the time there.
Far right over here, Pete.
Urban, I'm curious, Nick Saban made some comments after you guys beat him last year, talking about the difficulty of keeping guys who could go early to the NFL focused. I'm wondering, again, that Saturday manifested the way it did, but what is that like to manage when you're running a program with so many guys who could potentially do that?
One year in 2009, we had 12 guys sending the paperwork. 12. And that causes a little anxiety issues for the coaching staff. Not because, first of all, if you have 12, that means really well done recruiting and prepping guys. What it is, especially with the new era of recruiting, however, a lot of them committed already. So the two areas of concern are staying focused on the task at hand, and that's playing a very good team. And the second one is just the whole recruiting. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare just as far as, not as bad as a nightmare with having zero, that there's no players ever get drafted.
Sure.
I imagine a much more significant nightmare. But it's not easy, and I can see it. It wasn't just last year. I mean, this year seems to be more. I have to just make sure we're staying focused. And they're good. The good thing is they're really good guys. But there's human nature out there too.
Sure. When you look at the job that they've done at Michigan this year, you've gone to 3 programs and had pretty distinct turnarounds in your first year in your history. How impressed are you with how they've changed the way they do things on the field and the competitive spirit they've shown?
Very, very impressed. I'm not surprised because I think they're very good coaches, and I think I've always, I just recruit against them. They're very good recruiters. The previous staff was excellent recruiters, and they're very good players up there. So I'm not, when someone says, are you surprised that they have very good players up there? Not at all. I mean, for those of you who've been covering this game, just check out the last few games we played them. I mean, it is just swinging as hard as you possibly can against very good players.
Back over right, Mark.
Coach, you've worked, I think, with at least 2 of the coaches at Michigan, Coach Madison and Jay Durkin. I don't know, what can you tell us about them and any particular stories?
Good guys, good friends. DJ was a graduate assistant for me at Bowling Green in Ireland for me, so we know him and his family very well. And Greg's a lifelong friend and good coaches.
Right behind you, Clay.
What do you recall about '86, USGA and Harbaugh at quarterback? Would you welcome a guarantee from up north this week?
I do remember that, and I remember us missing a wide left right at the end as the clock ticked 0. You won't want me to name his name, but I remember the kicker's name, great kid. Not sure that I'm going to say that.
Far left, Bill.
Urban, I know in the
in the receiver room, you have, excuse me, a ton of great athletes with Braxton and Jalen and Dontre and Curtis. Those are all guys who are also making a transition or have made a transition from a different position. How have you seen their development maybe along this season, and how might that be affecting the passing game?
Oh, no, we have had some injuries, but their development's fine. We just got to do a better job of getting them the ball.
And I think Saturday was the fourth time you guys have been shut out in the first quarter. 5 times you haven't had a touchdown in the first quarter. As you assess everything, the slow starts, is there anything you can attribute that to? Is that concerning for you?
It's concerning, and it's part of this whole evaluation that I'm going through right now. After the season, in big detail, it's disappointing, and that's not our history. And we've got to evaluate why, and just don't have us time to do that right now.
A couple more questions. Back, Bill? Livingston?
Urban, you talked fairly recently about the game in 2011 when everything was, so many players had been suspended here and still was a 40-35, I think was the score, and how they took you to 42-41. How hard is it going to be to kind of restrike the match after Saturday night? Do you think it'll be
Well, I have a lot of confidence in the guys. You know, this is a very invested. They just had something happen to them they haven't had in, I think Jerry said 400 some days. Got hit right in the gut, and so I'm gonna. That's my job. And that's our coaching staff job and our leaders' job to make sure that there is focus and attention to detail. The good thing is you're playing a very good team.
Second row left, Ari.
Coach, last year you guys, the Virginia Tech game, had a very large recruiting weekend that for a game that didn't go real well. Again, this year, Michigan State, you guys had a lot of people in town, a lot of recruits. It was a very influential weekend for you. The weather, the way the game went, a lot of things didn't go your way. Can you explain how yesterday went from a tactical standpoint, and how do you deal at the end, especially now that you're closer to signing day than you were at Virginia Tech, having such an influential
Well, we
weekend?
only have a few spots left, and so a lot of these are to get to know guys. Some of the guys we just didn't know very well, and obviously with the rain and the loss, it's not the ideal like other games we've had. So it's tough, but I mean that's not the first time we all been down that road. Ohio State's a wonderful place that you win whenever you won 23 or 24 games, you lose one, and get going. The hard thing is just trying to have a good day meeting with your team, but that's the hardest thing. Come in and put on a recruiting face at 9 o'clock the next morning.
When you have to have 3 breakfasts, like you said, and all that stuff, I mean, you have a lot of, there's probably an element of gambling to this where you have to, pick a big game and an atmosphere and stuff. When things don't go your way, the right way, is it a setback for you? I mean,
surprisingly, because I've studied that, because I almost started that down in Florida, because we lost to Auburn one time, and it was the biggest weekend of the year, and we've had other ones where you beat a rival or something, and there's very little. A lot of times that won't make the decision. I'm not saying it doesn't sometimes, but there's no statistical data to say don't be so you're only going to make games that you really should win. So we err more on the side of atmosphere.
was it a good day yesterday on Sunday how did it go?
I don't think we want to talk about it.
Not specifically.
Last question over here, Doug.
Breakfasts were fine.
Thank you.
Urban, whether it's looking at the Michigan State game or just looking ahead to Michigan and what your offense needs to do against a good defense, I know every year is different, but there's a lot of guys on this offense who've had success. I mean, these are successful offensive players. Just 11 games in, what is it that just isn't quite there that in a game like that, you only score 14 points even with the weather and everything? What, are you still wondering?
Yeah, wonder is probably not the correct word if you're the head coach.
Yeah.
Probably a more firm answer. If it was something that firm or singular, you'd fix it immediately. And there's a variety of things. We're just not. We're not operating at maximum capacity. Is the key word, and we're still 10-1. So what I'm doing right now is every ounce of ability, every ounce of energy and focus is going on trying to win this game. There'll be a time that we didn't score in the first quarter 5 times. We didn't. Don't worry, that'll be flipped over, upside down, inside out. Not now, because our focus is on this. And it's not as simple as what's this one thing or 2 things, or fix it.
And obviously, again, you're only worried about winning this game. But you understand the big picture. You were in the around media for a year when you weren't coaching. When something like with what happened with Zeke happens, that's what people are talking about today out in the world. And I know you can't control it and you worry about your guys, but with your past experiences, can something like that have an effect on a program because
Sure.
how people view it or what people think of Ohio State now?
Oh, I don't, it's just in the locker room. This will be an old story, we find a way to win this game. I imagine we won't be talking about this much longer. If it was a person that had a history, or if there was some underlying, we were talking about the third league in rushers, so there's been, some very good stuff going on in that. I knew I'd get it today, but it's a closed seal that's sealed as far as our team and the team room is concerned, the locker room. And the only time we'll hear that, I'm sure, because I trust our guys. Not always trust our guys. I don't usually say it like that, but I think you guys get a feel when I have a true love and respect for a group of guys, and this group we do. And that kid you're talking about, he's one of my favorite all times. Because Elliott and Meyer family, like I made a comment, that's a 30-year relationship coming up, especially with his mom and dad too, and his two sisters. So it's sealed. He's good to go, and we're going to do our best to get ready to play this week.
Coach, thank you very much.